how does UNFPA define technology-facilitated gender-based violence? How is it showing up in the everyday lives of women and girls in Kenya?
Okay. We have a clear working definition. Basically, we define tech-facilitated gender-based violence as an act of violence perpetrated by one or more individuals that is committed, assisted, aggravated, and amplified in part or fully by the use of information and communication technologies or digital media against a person on the basis of their gender.
Good morning. Welcome to another exciting and informative episode of Digital Data Podcast. I'm your host, Cecilia Maundu, a broadcast journalist and a digital security trainer. I work at the intersection of technology, human rights, and journalism with a focus on countering online abuse against women and marginalized groups online. So in today's episodes, we have two amazing guests, and I will give them this opportunity to introduce themselves, and they'll tell us a little bit about their work on this space of TFGBV.
Yeah. Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you for having us, and good morning to everyone. So my name is Caroline Murgor, and I'm the GBV and Gender Advisor at the UNFPA Kenya Country Office.
Thank you so much, Caro, for making the time to be here.
Thank you
And
for
we are
having
looking
us.
forward to learn from you.
Yes.
Good morning, Cecilia.
Good morning.
And to the viewers, a good morning, good afternoon. My name is Sigi Waigumo Manzia, the Tech Facilitated Gender-Based Violence Consultant at the UNFPA Kenya.
Thank you so much. So before we begin, UNFPA, Caro, tell us something
Yes.
about UNFPA.
Yes, so UNFPA is basically, it's an acronym that stands for the United Nations Population Fund. And we are the lead agency focused on sexual and reproductive health and rights. And basically our overarching mission is ensuring that we deliver a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. So UNFPA globally works in over 150 countries worldwide and territories. And our work largely revolves around collaborating with government, with other UN agencies, with civil society, and also the private sector. So our key beneficiaries are women, girls, and young people. Those are the main focus target of our work. And also basically our work revolves around achieving three key transformative results, very ambitious results. One being ensuring we end the unmet need for family planning. The other one is around zero preventable maternal deaths. And the key one, which centers around the conversation we are having today, is on ending gender-based violence and harmful practices. And for here in Kenya specifically, we look at harmful practices like FGM and child marriage. So basically, we really do play a very catalytical role when it comes to supporting countries to be able to also collect and analyze data, because with data, that informs programming, informs policy, and tells us who is the farthest left behind and who needs the support and services that we have. And basically, our strong emphasis is ensuring that we leave no one behind.
Wow. I actually didn't know you guys do so much. After Sigi invited me for a meeting in February, I was like, oh, now let me learn about UNFPA.
Yes.
But I didn't imagine it so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the work you're doing. And the first question goes to you.
Yes.
So to ground our conversation, how does UNFPA define technology-facilitated gender-based violence? How is it showing up in the everyday lives of women and girls in Kenya?
Okay. Thank you, Cecilia, for that. It's a very great starting point, yeah, as much as we've defined what UNFPA is. So we really have to, and I think it's important for the audience also and the people out there to acknowledge that there isn't one single universal agreed upon definition of what technology-facilitated gender-based violence is. But there is a common understanding that it's basically, or it is essentially the continuum of existing unequal gender norms that we face within our cultural context, and it's basically reproduced and amplified within the digital space. For UNFPA as an agency specifically, we have a clear working definition. Basically, we define tech-facilitated gender-based violence as an act of violence perpetrated by one or more individuals that is committed, assisted, aggravated, and amplified in part or fully by the use of information and communication technologies or digital media against a person on the basis of their gender. So unfortunately, it is what we are seeing out there, that technology-facilitated gender-based violence has really become an entrenched part of the digital space and even online experiences for many women and girls in this country. And it's really manifesting in multiple and a lot of often overlapping ways. But as we know that while there are hundreds of forms globally of definitions of tech-facilitated gender-based violence, as a baseline study that was conducted by UNFPA recently identified at least 11 key manifestations within our jurisdiction. And I'll keep borrowing because Siggy's legal profession, so she keeps saying jurisdiction a lot. I like that term. Yeah. So some of the common ones we are seeing include widespread cyberbullying. We have relentless online harassment and also cyber stalking. And this usually affects mostly women and girls. So beyond just the direct harassment, we are seeing a lot of privacy violations as well among that is being perpetuated against women and girls. And this includes things like hacking into personal accounts. Sometimes you're finding people have taken over your Instagram or your social media pages, and the things that are being posted there are very graphic. There's also surveillance. That's another thing. People always keeping an eye on you. You know, they always say that when you have, especially with your laptop, and the camera section,
you don't block the camera.
You don't lock the camera. Someone can easily, tap into that and view. And then also there's the issue of exposure or misuse of deeply personal and intimate information and content. So what you share out there, the internet doesn't forget. So someone can always have access to it and basically just use it, to abuse you. And also one of the very growing concerns as well is the aspect around AI-generated deepfakes. We've seen that happening globally. It's happening even here, which is and can be very incredibly damaging for survivors, because it's very easy for just someone to pick your face, put it on an AI-generated image, and it look and sound and behave so like you. And then also there's the issue of identity theft and impersonation. Where perpetrators usually assume someone's digital personal identity to cause harm or to also spread false information. And it really TFGBV encompasses a very wide range of abuses. So those are just some of the components that I can highlight.
You know, when I was listening to you, we had a webinar and somebody said we really need a multi-stakeholder approach to get rid of this issue of TFGBV, because it's in so many dimensions that we cannot continue speaking in silos. Like we need like everyone on board. Thank you so much for that, Carol. Siggy, I'll come to you. I have to tell our audience, I've known you for several years.
Very many years.
Yes, and you're such a pleasant person.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Cecilia.
So through UNFPA supported research engaging university students, what insights have you uncovered about how young people experience TFGBV within campus environments?
Thank you for that important question, Cecilia. I know that maybe a certain percentage of your audience and viewership is going to be young people, so this question is going to be especially pertinent to them. So as you rightly mentioned, in 2024, UNFPA supported a rapid study that was conducted by our partners. So that's the Collaborative Center for Gender and Development, CCGD, in its abbreviated form, and the University of Nairobi's Women's Economic Empowerment Hub, the WeHub. Those are big mouthfuls.
Okay.
Big mouthfuls. The study focused on 3 key tertiary institutions in Kenya. So that's the University of Nairobi, there was Kabete National Polytechnic, and Zetech University. The research study generated a lot of insightful insights, and insights that emphasize specifically the importance of establishing within campus environments prevention responses and prevention systems for students, establishing very strong support systems for students, both at the legal and the policy perspective, but also just generating conversations around what it means to be safe online, and critical conversations also around digital literacy. So the first key insight, and this speaks to some of the insights that Caroline has shared, speaks to the forms of TFGBV that were being documented within that study. So we noted that for women, the key forms of TFGBV that were being experienced were, as Caroline mentioned, the non-consensual distribution of intimate and personal content. And as Caroline also mentioned, I will keep reverting back to Carol, AI is duplicating and is enhancing and is multiplying the effects of this particular form of TFGBV for women, for girls. We've seen how, for example, Grok AI is being used to address women and girls on X, formerly Twitter, and the devastating effect that this is having, not just on Kenyan women, but on women across the continent and beyond. The form of TFGBV that we noted was prevalent between the two genders was online defamation. So somebody goes online, says something about you that is untrue, that is defamatory, and we've seen this form of TFGBV emerging quite prevalently. The second key insight that we generated was around gendered patterns. So the study highlighted that young female students were most often the victims or the survivors of TFGBV, whereas the male students were often the predominant perpetrators of TFGBV. And I say predominant because they are not the only perpetrators of TFGBV, but those studies are quite telling. And for us as an organization, this speaks to the broader gendered dynamics within the country that reflect some of the issues that we see around power, around control, and how these are then being transposed onto online spaces. The other critical insight that we were able to generate from the response is around response and support systems. So while some students opted to go and report some of their experiences of TFGBV to, for example, their support system, so their parents, their friends within academic institutions, some perhaps leveraged the existing mechanisms at the institutional level. Majority of the respondents in the study took no action. And that's quite telling, that students are afraid or do not know. So it speaks to challenges of trust. It speaks to challenges of access and use of support systems. It speaks to challenges of the perceived effectiveness also of some of these mechanisms that are in place to address TFGBV. I think just in summary, the academic setup or the academic setting is a very rife environment, not just for the perpetuation of TFGBV in digital spaces, but also for the continuation of this online-offline continuum of abuse, harm that are predicated on issues of gender. And so just encourage the viewers to access the report on our website for more key insights on that. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you. I must say, I found a lot of information from that report. Additionally, Carol, you mentioned something to do with safety by design. And one of the things with safety by design is through the lived experiences of the people, the end users of this tech platform. I think, Sigi, one question I would ask, how was it collecting the data? I'm asking from a point of, every time I have a guest seated here to talk about TFGBV, they have really struggles to be able to come here and tell their story, because so TFGBV is amplified by victim shaming. So how was it just collecting the data, talking to these young people?
So I think just as a starting point, even as we're collecting data, especially on such a critical issue, it is important to carry in mind the core GBV principles. So doing no harm to the individuals who we are interviewing, ensuring that the responses and the questionnaires are centered on issues of ethics, are centered on issues of safe and safety and appropriate data protection collection mechanisms. So when the study was being deployed, they deployed they used a number of tools. So those were questionnaires, those were survey tools. There were also one-on-one interviews with some of the students. And naturally, those interviews were conducted, as I mentioned, within this safe ethical framework, where we see the integration of safety as a critical feature within the interview and the data collection process. From a data storage and safety perspective, because that's a very critical question that underscores the issue of safety by design.
Correct.
In 2025, we are 5-6 years into the implementation of the Data Protection Act, and I think that as a nation we are still at the nascent stages, but we are doing very, very well in terms of protection. But that study for us really underscored the importance of ethical and safe collection of individuals' personal and sensitive personal data, because some of the stories that were being shared by the students were very intimate, very intimate and very personal stories. And it's important, as the process of collection is going on, that you reassure the interview group from whom the data is being collected, that the data will be collected and stored in a safe and ethical manner. Yeah.
And the same also applied for the baseline, because there's quite a lot of interviews and also just the data collection process. So we always ensure that the safety and security of the person providing you that information is what we really we consider priority.
And that's very, very key, because also the way you talked about ethical ways of collecting research, sometimes as researchers, unknowingly, we end up putting information out there that can actually come and hurt this person. So, Carol, what does collaboration between stakeholders, because we said this needs a multi-stakeholder approach, such as women, what does collaboration between stakeholders such as women rights, feminist-led organization, activists, tech companies, and government bodies, amongst others, currently look like in Kenya when it comes to addressing TFGBV?
Thank you, Cecilia. I think that was
yeah.
yours. But if you want, I can take that through.
Let me take that question, Cecilia. So I think as a country, we are doing an incredible amount of work in terms of generating research, in terms of advocacy, in terms of raising awareness, in terms of campaign generation and campaign strengthening. From maybe I can stratify this into entities and organizations for ease of viewers. So we have seen a lot of proactivity from women-led organizations, from digital rights organizations, from feminist-led organizations, who are taking very proactive steps in terms of research, advocacy, prevention, support to survivors. And on the converse, we have seen government also being quite proactive in terms of legal and policy reform, consultations, community engagements. And I'll give the example of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, who is doing such a fantastic job in terms of raising awareness about data protection rights, what are the core principles, to whom should you give data to and to whom should you not give data to. So we're seeing a lot of sporadic collaboration and awareness raising from stakeholders. However, the position still remains. Collaboration between stakeholders is very weak at best. And that speaks,
fragmented.
it is quite fragmented, and it speaks to issues of funding gaps. It speaks to issues of capacities, even within organizations that are dealing and working with on TFGBV issues. It speaks to issues of resource limitations, and it also speaks to issues of differing priorities amongst and between sectors. Because somebody who's coming, for example, from a techie perspective is not going to be looking at safety by design, for example, as a critical principle for integration into tech design and deployment. But on the other hand, then we have digital rights proponents and advocates saying it is important for you to integrate this. We have women rights organizations saying it is important for these entities to integrate these priorities into processes. So one of the core areas that UNFPA seeks to at least minimize or to reduce this gap in terms of collaboration is to really provide platforms for convening. And I'm sure Carol will extend a very warm invitation to our viewership through co-creation and through very targeted investments in survivor-centered approaches, both at a research and at a practical level, promoting survivor-centered approaches, promoting rights-based approaches as integral to the MASS program, and as integral to collaboration, effective multi-stakeholder and cross-sectoral collaboration amongst and between stakeholders. They're a mouthful.
It usually is.
Wow.
Big words.
But basically it's just ensuring that coordination is really done well among all the stakeholders.
So could you, Carol, walk us through, and this was my favorite question, could you walk us through the UNFP global framework for TFGBV programming? How does UNFPA Kenya ensure that the framework speaks to the real lived experience of survivors in Kenya? Yes, and the research, I found like the same thing, because I used to teach in the university, and we would have these conversations with the girls, and like the same things they were telling, and it's not, it's like 2017, so it's not like it's like literally 10 years ago. The same things I saw in there, so I was like, oh my goodness, it's still happening the same way, maybe now more sophisticated. So Carol, to you, the lived experience of survivors in Kenya.
Absolutely, I think that's a very important question, and maybe just to contextualize it and give a brief background, because for UNFPA, We partnered with the Australia E-Safety Commissioner, basically to develop a global framework for technology facilitated, I'm going to say that word until people get used to it, TFGBV
Especially
programming,
myself.
technology facilitated gender-based violence. Basically, this framework, just think of it as a practical guide, basically just designed to help us really be able to create strategies that are, one, truly survivor-centered. That is very important. The other one is around that, making sure that this framework is trauma-informed, because that is key. And then also very sensitive to diverse contexts, or the different contexts globally that as programs we are operating in. At the core of that is what we call the fundamental GBV principles, that Sigi alluded to, survivor-centered, trauma-informed, sensitive to context. And basically this is just ensuring that those working to combat this violence or tech-facilitated gender-based violence are coordinated, but also ensuring the well-being of those who are also supporting, because they are also at risk as well. So the framework basically is structured around three key interconnected pillars, which is the same that you see within the normal GBV prevention and response programming. One is prevention and mitigation. The second one is around advocacy and campaigns, which is what we are seeing happening with women rights organizations, youth-led organizations. And the third pillar is response. How then do we respond and support survivors and those at risk on tech facilitated? So basically these pillars also, for us to be able to ensure that we are implementing programs that are targeting the beneficiaries, we need to ensure that it's supported by continuous research, the one we did at the university, the baseline that we did, and also rigorous monitoring, but also basically just a commitment to fostering an enabling environment through where we can have rights-based legal and technological reforms that are really beneficial for every user or anyone who's online. So, and just to bring it home, and where your question around how are we ensuring that it's speaking to the real lived experiences of the women and girls in this country, and this is where the MASS program comes in, that UNFPA is implementing. It's called the Making All Spaces Safe program. Basically, this is a global initiative that's very generously supported by Global Affairs Canada, and Kenya is just one of the pilot countries alongside Benin who are implementing this program. Basically, MASS is how then we localize the global framework to speak to the what we are doing as a country. So basically what the program does is to ensure that it's deeply rooted in the lived experiences that you rightfully mentioned of survivors, by engaging community-led actions, also really, and Sigi alluded to this, holding extensive consultations with stakeholders, with a wide array of stakeholders, and also consultations, and I keep saying these consultations directly with survivors, because only the wearer of the shoe knows where it pinches them. Yes. So they are key, their voices are very important. And also the MASS program is aiming to really build strong partnerships, which is what we did from when we did the inception with the breakfast meeting, the consultations that we've had around the counties that this program will be implemented. And basically, maybe just for the sake of the viewers, that this program will be piloted in Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa. And basically, our approach is really grassroots oriented or grassroots centered. Basically, just ensuring that we reflect, and you'll hear me mentioning this a lot, the diverse realities of survivors, because they are different. The spectrum is huge. Very huge. Across this country. And basically, the core strategy for the MASS program is not to work on technology-facilitated gender-based violence as a standalone program. What UNFPA and our partners are doing is to ensure that this program is integrated within the larger GBV and prevention and response program in the country. Because why we say that is because the survivors are the same. So if they are seeking services, the legal and policy frameworks are the same. So instead of having siloed programs, which then also really creates fatigue among survivors and those at risk, especially when they're trying to seek justice or support, is to ensure that it is integrated within the continuum of prevention and response to, and that is basically, we've known that online violence basically translates to offline violence.
It actually moves offline.
It does, majority of the time moves to offline violence. So it's very important that we understand that digital violence is not isolated. It also happens in the real setup. So it's very important that when we are integrating, we ensure that digital violence is also addressed comprehensively along all other forms of gender-based violence.
You know, I'm so impressed that you are moving out of Nairobi, because there's a time we were doing some trainings. It was in Bungoma, Kisii, and I think Migori. And one of the things that, because we were training women journalists in the rural areas, they were asking me like, like the violence here is even worse, because most of them are from the vernacular stations. They're like, but we never get an opportunity to even talk about it. And, you know, your podcast, we only see people from Nairobi.
Yes.
And, you know, you start asking yourself so many questions like, do I start interviewing them from the grassroots? You know, the logistics. But it's good now it is moving out of Nairobi, because we were just acting like it is just happening in Nairobi. And when you look at even in the vernacular spaces, it is very, very toxic.
Correct.
So, yeah. So, Sigi, I'm coming to you. One of the core principles of UNFPA mass safety program is safety by design.
Correct.
Yes. What does that principle look like in practical terms for tech platforms, service providers, and GBV prevention and response intervention?
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Safety by design is a big, it seems like a big concept, but it's actually very simple at its core. Safety by design, as advanced by the MASS program and as has been advanced by individuals working in digital rights, by trust and safety individuals working in the trust and safety spaces, essentially means incorporating and embedding safety into tech design and into tech deployment and development from the very onset. So safety, not as an afterthought. Safety should never be an afterthought. The goal of the safety by design principle, both in principle and in theory, is to make online and offline spaces safer through the incorporation of 3 principles that have been advanced by the e-Safety Commissioner. So one is service provider responsibility. And that's a very big conversation that we need to have in this country around here I'll speak specifically about digital tech, social media platforms. If we have protections, there needs to be a balance between intermediary liability protections and the provider responsibilities that vest when harm has arisen against users of platforms. The second core principle that is advanced as part of safety by design is on user autonomy and empowerment. So here we're talking about choices. What choices does a user have when they actually use specific tech products and tech platforms? And the third is around transparency and accountability. And that's a big one. We've been seeing a lot of, that's a very huge conversation. We've been seeing some companies, for example, publishing transparency reports, which are fantastic. But those reports don't speak to transparency and accountability from the get-go. How did you go about designing your tech products? What safeguards did you incorporate from the outset in terms of data protection safeguards? What choices have you actually given to users to be able not only to use those platforms, but also to reach out to you for safety, for transparency, for accountability when issues relating to their interaction with those platforms arises? So I'll give a very simple example in relation to consent, because consent has become a very big conversation in Kenya that intersects, the conversations of safety by design and data protection. Instead of, for example, techies, and I'll use the word techies, deploying, consent as an opt-out feature, it should be prioritizing consent as an opt. You should be giving users the option either to decline to data collection and data sharing, or to respond and state whether they want to actually opt in to the collection of their data. That, for example, is one very manifest example of safety by design. From the perspective of GBV and harmful practice interventions and programming, we've seen a lot of entities within the space, deploying tech for purposes of their programming. And I'll speak here to the very sensational T app. I don't know whether you've heard about it. So the T app was an application that was developed to help provide women who have experienced, for example, gender-based violence at the hands of specific romantic partners to be able to come out and share their experiences with other women. But the way that app was developed and the harm that has arisen from the deployment and the use of that app, including the leak of users, ID information, including the leak of conversations around abortions, around cheating, the harm that has arisen as a result of this application not integrating these safety safeguards from the get-go. We are now seeing an application that was supposed to, provide a platform for GBV survivors to talk about their experiences and to share information, now being the same application that is being used to effect and to perpetrate harm against those same users. And those users are largely women. And some of the safeguards that, for example, could have been put in place into this particular app are very well outlined in the practical checklists that UNFPA has advanced in its guidance on safe and ethical tech for GBV and harmful programming. So these are just some of the practical examples. There are very many extensive ones that have been advanced, both by individuals within the trust and safety space, by organizations such as IREX, which has done a lot of work on safety by design, and also within our own material. So just to reiterate and recap, safety by design is about safety at the outset, not safety as an afterthought.
I was watching one of the Australian commissioner describing safety by design. You see, there we have cars and we have airbags.
Correct.
Just in case you ever need to use it. It comes from the onset, not after.
Correct.
Putting the end user from the first development part of the technology to the end. Because now we are at a point whereby safety is your responsibility. It's like you take care of yourself while you're on our platform. So safety by design is changing that narrative. And it's quite exciting to see such things.
It is. It is.
So as we come to the tail end of this beautiful conversation, Karum, I'm coming to you. Finally, we've got it right. What would a safe, just and inclusive internet look like for African women, girls, and gender diverse community? What we call like a safe feminist space. How does it look like? It's good to dream.
No, it is. And I think basically, thank you, Cecilia. That's a very important question. I think we need to focus. We shift our focus and our image or imagine what safe is. For me personally, that would be painting a picture of true empowerment. That is what safe is. For you to achieve true empowerment, that is what safe is. So just imagine a digital space where African women and girls in their entirety and in their beauty can express themselves very freely and be able to access incredible opportunities, whether it's education, whether it's economic empowerment or economic growth, or just connecting with others and being able to really participate without any fear. That their information or they will not be safe, Imagine how that world would be. Basically, just making sure safe would mean then ensuring that their rights of the African women and girls is really fully protected. And crucial to this is really that technology itself, as Sigi has mentioned when you're talking about safety by design, would be designed with immense care and really focus. I mean, even it would be good even if domestically they were designed right here in Africa, because then it would reflect the unique needs and cultures of the women and girls, taking into those consideration, even looking at the language, the local language that is used, taking that into consideration. And maybe the most important when you talk about safe, or how does safe look like, is accountability for harm. Accountability for harm would basically be an absolute norm. That is what we are making a priority when we're designing tech that is to be used by everyone, whether it's women, girls, boys, and men, and not some in some rare exception maybe it's something that will less and less fight for that space or fight for that safety, but it's something that is considered. So it's not that we are waiting to react when something has happened, but thinking of it at the onset. And speaking of vital spaces as well, and creating those spaces, when it comes to issues of whether we're discussing progress, whether we're discussing how to protect our women and girls, as UNFPA, we're really thrilled to announce that we will be holding the first ever inaugural Africa Technology Facilitated Gender-Based Violence Symposium. Basically, and this is a warm invitation to all the viewers and all partners and everyone who is in this field. Basically, this event will be a virtual event, so there is room for everyone to participate, and it will be held between November 5th and 6th of this year, 2025. Just at the beginning, before 16 days of activism, against gender-based violence. So this is, it'll be a space being co-hosted by UNFPA and Kenya, and basically the Kenya and Benin, and it's open to all within the region, within our region. So maybe just to request that you keep a close eye on our social media spaces, platforms like X, Facebook, and also our website, which will, as we continue progressing with the planning, those details will become available. And it's also an opportunity that we really can't miss to come together as partners, because as you said, our partnership is so fragmented. We need to have one voice, collective voice as a region, to ensure that we really, really work towards the vision of true safety. When we are talking about safety for women and girls, and looking at also making sure that our internet is basically more inclusive and actually just for everyone who's using it.
When you speak and you imagine that future, what a beautiful future, whereby you are not worried that something I've put online can be used against me, or you can find it in the wrong place.
Or even your child's photos.
And the internet doesn't forget. It has the memory of an elephant. So you're not worried that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it will pop up somewhere. So we are holding our breath knowing that it's going to happen. Because there's a meeting I was attending, and one of the, it was a feminist meeting on digital rights. And one of the panelists said something: we don't have the luxury of losing hope. We have to keep the hope that the internet will be safe for everyone online. So thank you so much for making the time again. And one thing I've gotten out of this conversation, we are speaking about it. Because before it was just a silent matter just being addressed, but now it is being spoken. And the more we're speaking about it, the more we are breaking this norm of saying it is just, it is online, so it's not real. It's not real violence. It is real violence, and it is affecting real people. Yes. So thank you so much. Thank you. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us. And I have something that I would want to say. We've been getting emails on when are we bringing the next survivor online. I want to say something. Every time you see somebody seated on this seat, just know it has taken courage for them to come and speak, and also they've healed, because we also don't want them to be re-traumatized because of this issue. So when they are ready to speak, you will see them here. So for now, we are asking you people to give us grace. We will get them to come and speak. But in the meantime, we have a new series, Digital ID series, which is being funded by the African Union through GIZ. Please keep watch for that. Asante sana. See you in the next episode.
Thank you.